Welcome back. My name is Darren Thomas, and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this particular video, we're going to be focusing on data manipulation, calculations, etc., using data tables, of course, inside R. So let's go ahead and see what we can learn. So now you can see that we're clearly inside R Studio. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So we're going to start by, of course, loading Data.Table. That's going to be our primary library here. And we're going to convert the empty cars data frame or data set into a Data.Table. That's what we're going to do in these first two lines of code. So we're going to run this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start doing some basic selecting, deselecting. That's going to be our first focus. Then we're going to move to calculating various values, etc. So our first little trick here is we're going to learn how to select and deselect values. So if you look on our screen right here, you can clearly see that we are creating an object called mtcars_select. And what we're doing here is we're using the mtcar data.table. Notice this comma right here. Normally stuff to the left of the column has to do with rows, but we're going to learn that that's not necessarily the case. And things to the right of the column have to do with columns, which again is not necessarily the case, as we will see in the future. So we're using the concatenate function, also called the C function, and we're telling R that we want these two columns from the mtcars data set. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And now, because we're going to get a lot of rows back, like over 30, we're just going to look at the first 5 using the head function. And so you can see that we're only pulling these two columns from mtcars. If you're not familiar with this data set, I'll just show you what it looks like by default using the head function here. And so you can see normally we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 11 columns. But when we use this little trick here with data.tables, we only pull the two columns that are clearly within inside our parentheses right here. That's how it works. Now, you can also do the opposite where you tell it to leave out something. So this is hard to explain just talking about it, but let me show you. Now, in in lines 8, 9, and 10, the major difference between what we saw before and what we see now is this minus sign right here. Everything else about the code is exactly the same. And what we're telling R this time is take all columns except for MPG, miles per gallon, CYL, the number of cylinders. So now, instead of getting two columns, we're going to get everything but these two columns, which means we should have about 9 columns of data here. So we're just going to go ahead and run this. And so you can see it right here for yourself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And notice how we start with display and horsepower. And notice how miles per gallon and the number of cylinders is missing because of that minus sign. So that means to leave out. The minus sign means to leave out and to include everything else. Our next trick, we're going to focus on calculating values now. So one of the things that are highly unique to data.tables is the ability to calculate various values using this syntax. So right now, what we're doing here in lines 12 to 14 is we're calculating the median miles per gallon. Now, of course, you can use the median function outside of this. However, as we go forward in this particular video, we're going to learn how you can filter based on various characteristics that you want when you're calculating this. So for right now, what we're doing is we're calculating the median miles per gallon with no kind of filtering on it, with no kind of exceptions to what we're looking for. So notice how to the left, nothing is there of the comma, but to the right, we clearly have our function here and inside it, miles per gallon. So right now, we're using all values inside this data set to calculate the median miles per gallon. So all cars, basically. So let's go ahead and run this. And you can see we get a nice clear output of 19.2 in our console screen. you can also give names to these various calculations that you do. That's going to be our next example right here. And so in this one, we have the exact same basic setup, except this time we're calculating the mean and we're giving our output a name. So mean underscore MPG. Now, I don't know how easy it is to see this, but if you look very closely at line 17, we have a little tiny period right here to the right of the comma. This must be included if you want to give your various calculations, names. That's very, very important, and it's very hard to see. Without that period, you're going to have some problems. So let's go ahead and run this. And so notice how we got a clear output, and notice the difference. We have a name for our output. That's the difference. So the object's name was mean underscore PG, and inside that object, we have this calculation called mean underscore MPG. That's what's unique this time. And of course, you can do more than one calculation. And so this allows you to get a lot of work done, a lot of summary data if you're looking for specific characteristics. So take a look now at lines 20 to 22. It's mostly the same, except notice how we now have two different functions this time. So we have them trapped inside this dot, almost like a function, I guess you could think of it, but it's not really a function. Inside this dot, we have the minimum miles per gallon, comma, and the maximum miles per gallon. So we're going to have two outputs, or two calculations that are going to be shared here. So we're calling our object min underscore max underscore MPG. We run our results, and you can see right there that this is the lowest value, 10.4. This is the highest value, 33.9. And notice how our variables do not have names. And of course, you know that we can name these as well, following the same basic principles as we saw in a prior example. So we're going to go ahead and show this. So in lines 24 to 26, notice how we have the same dot notation here. And inside that, we give a name to our first function that we're going to use, which is going to calculate the mean of weight. And we also give a name to our second output, our second calculation, which is going to give us the calculation of the max horsepower. So we're going to have two calculations that come out this time. And so notice how they're named this time, because we named them inside the dot parentheses. So the mean weight is 3.21725, and the max horsepower is 335. Now, for our next trick, I'm going to show you how we can also filter things. This is a little bit more complicated, but you're going to understand in a second. Now, take a look at this. We're looking at lines 29 to 32. We're creating an object called MPG miles per gallon underscore stats, and this is what we're doing. We want to calculate the minimum miles per gallon and the maximum miles per gallon. That's what we have right here, but it's going to be based on a certain criteria. If you look at the information to the left of the comma, this is new this time. Normally this has been blank, but we want to calculate the minimum and maximum miles per gallon for cars that have exactly 6 cylinders, and that's what the ampersand is here for cars that have less than 120 horsepower. So we're not calculating for the entire data set of cars that we have, only for cars that meet these two criteria, exactly 6 cylinders and a horsepower that is less than 120. This is how you're able to filter your data and get calculations, very similar to what you can do if you're using dplyr as an example. So we run all of this and we get our output. So if a car has exactly 6 cylinders and if a car has less than 120 horsepower, the minimum miles per gallon is 18.1 and the maximum miles per gallon is 21.4. That's what we have there. And for our last final trick right here, we're going to show you how you can team this up with other functions. So in this example, we are looking at, in lines 34 and 35, we're still pulling data from empty cars. Notice how we have some filtering information to the left of our comma. We want cars that are exactly 6 cylinders again, and that have a horsepower of less than 120. And what we're going to do with these cars that we pull in this example is a histogram of the miles per gallon. That's what we're doing. So we run this, and if you look off to your right in the lower right hand corner, you can see our histogram. So it looks like we have 3 cars, and we have 1 car at 18 and 19, 1 car at 20 something, and 1 car at over 21. And so again, this is another way that you're able to filter your data while also being able to also make visualizations, which is another really cool feature of being able to use Data.Tables. Notice also in our console in the output, we got all the information here for a histogram. As you can see, the density, the mid values, the actual variable, etc. And so a lot of really cool stuff. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of review what we talked about and conclude this video. So in this particular video, we looked at how you can perform various calculations and filter data using Data.Table. So we started by how to select and deselect the various columns you might want to include. We looked at how to use various functions inside the Data.Table syntax to come up with various calculations that we might want to have, whether it's median, whether it's mean, etc. How you can use just one function, how you can use multiple functions if you include the dot parentheses syntax right here. We also looked at how you can give your various calculations names. So you use the dot notation again, dot parentheses, and put a name in there, as you can see here to the left of your whatever function you're using. We looked at how you can also filter while also giving names to your functions and doing multiple calculations, as you can see in this example right here in line 29 to 31, excuse me. So based on the criteria that is to the left of the comma, and I mean this comma right here, we can set up our filtering criteria, and then we can put our calculations to the left of that, to the right, excuse me, of that particular comma, and using our dot parentheses notation, put our names inside the parentheses as well as the function we want to use. And lastly, we took a look at how you can actually also make visualizations using the Data.Table syntax. So I want to thank you again for watching this particular video. My name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Take care, and we will see you in the next video.